guys, welcome back to Goatman. My name is Joe Barlow, and today I've got another visual effect deconstruction for you. If you've been watching this series so far, then you know I've been attempting to recreate a visual effect from every single Marvel film. This week we've got Thor 2, The Dark World, and I've attempted to recreate the scene where Thor gets his hand chopped off by Loki. This originally was uploaded on Instagram, so if you're not already following me there, then do be sure to click the link in the description. But if you haven't seen it already, don't worry, here it is. Alright, so this is the scene that we are going to be replicating today. This is where Loki chops Thor's hand off in Thor the Dark World. There it is. So a couple of things happen in this shot, and we mainly replicate the hand chopping off, but we also do some things with Thor's hammer. So let's just watch it through a couple of times and get to sort of see what's actually happening. It's quite a dark shot being in this dark world. But if we go down to 0.25 speed and play it through again, we might be able to see a couple of things that we might have missed. So we've got Thor reaching out for his hammer, and his hammer is just here. I'm not sure how well you can see that. And it does lift and start to move towards him when Loki grabs his hand. So the hammer's on its way, and this is something we replicated in the shot. Loki chops off Thor's hand. And this is where we did a lot of the replicating. With this, we've got like the inner bones and sort of systems of the arm there. We've got this ring of fire. Now, I assume this is because he's just chopped through Thor's metal brace, but I'm not wearing that in the video, but I still did that sort of fire ring. And then we've got the hand falling off. We've got a few sparks. I did notice, if I'm really quick here, there's like this warp effect around Thor's hand as it is chopped off. I really can't pause this in time. Like here, this sort of warp effect. Now I didn't do that. I'm not sure what this was meant to sort of be. Magic, maybe, I don't know. Maybe this was sort of a tell by the visual effects artist that this was a spell from Loki. But that was there. I missed out on that. And then the next shot, we see Thor's hammer just sort of fall into the ground because he was calling it, and now he's no longer summoning it. So that's what we took from this shot, and we went over to After Effects and we created this. We've got me reaching for the hammer. It does a bit of movement, and then we've got a second shot where my hand's been chopped off and the hammer goes through this fence here. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that shot, but let's just go over to shot one. So as you've already seen in this shot, what we have is Thor's hammer here, Mjölnir maybe, lifting up ever so slightly and coming towards my hand. It's just the start of this sort of this movement. Now what you'll see if I just zoom in slightly is we've got a bit of a shadow on the ground which fades as the hammer comes away, and then just a bit of rotation animation and sort of it lifting there to try and mimic how it would move. Now, there's not much more to go into other than that, but I will go into the Element 3D setup and just show you a few things inside of here. So we've got the hammer model. This was a printable object, a 3D printable object, which I've just converted into something that can be animated. Nice detail on that hammer there. I've added a texture of just sort of like this chrome texture, and then this pretty blank brown texture for the handle. So I've got the sort of similar looking textures there, and then there is also this hidden texture. Now this is just a plane like this. I've obviously scaled it up some amount, and this is imitating the ground. So what I've actually done with this is I've made it not visible to camera, and I've also turned something called matte shadows on, which basically means it's going to accept any shadows but not show up on camera. Only the shadows will show up. So effectively it's our ground, and that is what you're seeing here underneath the hammer. So the shadows are being projected from the hammer onto that layer. That layer isn't showing up, but the shadows off of it are. So it's a pretty cool way of just sort of getting those ground shadows in Element 3D. And of course, from there I've just animated it. You can probably see the null object actually doing its work there. It sort of lifts from the front and then rotates as it's been summoned. And that is our shot 1. So there's a little bit more happening with shot 2. Not much more, because this is a fairly simple shot from the film. I decided to go with this rather than some of the bigger budget stuff because it could be done on a smaller budget. There's a lot of spaceships and laser fights and portals and floating lorries and stuff, and I did attempt a few of those, but I thought this was something that I could sell a little bit better than some of those bigger budget things. So what we've got is an arm chopping my hand off like that. And then later on, we've got that hammer coming through the fence, and we'll start with the hand, and we'll come back to the hammer. So the first thing I want to do here is take a look at the hand slice layer. This is where I built the hand being chopped off on its own, none of the fence stuff behind it. So let's take a look at this. We've got a nice clean plate of the fence behind me. There we go. And then what we've also got is this footage of me acting like my hand's been chopped off. You'll notice as soon as it's been chopped off, I've clenched it into a fist. This was just to keep it as small as possible. So what I could do is mask it out. So I sort of pull it towards me, imitate that it's been chopped off. And all I did there to achieve that effect is obviously just mask it out. And because we've got this nice clean layer behind it, it worked perfect. So there's a little bit of a feather in there going on, and that sort of did the trick. Now, with the clean plate, I did have to match the color ever so slightly because, you know, time passes and the color changes. So, you know, that's there. But I think that's pretty passable as a sort of clean mask. Now, you'll also notice I've split that footage. So obviously I wanted a hand at the beginning and then I wanted to chop off. So at the very beginning, the before, it's just playing through as it was. And then I've split that into hand and the arm shot. So what we have with the hand is that just falling out. So that's animated off shot like that. So that's the hand chop off. I've added a bit of directional blur to these things as well, just so they move and react correctly. And then the next thing I've done is added in this little guy. Now this is just a picture of an arm holding a sword. It's basically the only thing I could find on Google that could let me make it look like there's someone actually chopping off my hand. So again, I added a bit of sort of lens blur to this, just to sort of smoothen it out. And we've got him coming in like this. I've just animated it. And this is in place of Loki. It's not the best way of doing this. I did film something myself, actually, I think. But just the scale looks wrong. So we went with this. It's only something that appears ever so slightly. And again, I think we can get away with it. So we've already got the hand being chopped off, the sword coming in, and a lot of the work done already. The only thing we want to do next is cover this feather in. And for that, I've gone onto Google and got this arm slice. Now this is like a picture of the inside of your arm. There's sort of reference images that are around on Google, aren't they? So we've got like the sort of meatiness and sort of a bone in the middle. You notice Thor actually had the 2 bones. That's probably more correct. This is obviously this bit, I assume, is actually from like up here rather than the hand. It's all I could find, so it's what I went with. So what I've done there is tracked it on. You can see all this different tracking data just so it fits on my arm. I think I did go into Mocha just to get sort of a track with that. And then I just sort of hand animated some of it as well to match. There's a bunch of color correction and levels and hue because it originally looked like this, which I didn't want it to be that violent. So I just sort of toned it down a little bit, made it a bit more pinker. Maybe more like meat you would pull out of your fridge rather than freshly chopped arm. So altogether that looked like that. We've got it sort of reacting and rotating the way my arm does. And it was at this point I sort of decided, you know what, let's put those flames back on, similar to Thor's. Now obviously, as I mentioned, in the video it looked like it was Thor's brace that was actually catching fire, but I thought, it's magic, let's just pop it in here. It's some sort of mystical slice anyway. So I've got this asset here, this little fireball. Let me just show you this. Looks great. It's just something in my collection of assets. I've frozen it in time so it sort of didn't do its fiery animation. And I've just put a mask in the middle. So we've only got sort of like an outer ring of it. I could have done this a couple of ways. I could have maybe used Saber, something there, but it was just something I dropped on, used the same tracking data, and then faded it out towards the end as it would have cooled down almost. And that's everything that we needed to do to chop off my hand in this video. Now, originally I was going to have the hammer, if I just sort of create a new object quickly. Now, the hammer originally I was going to have come in behind me. I actually created this mask footage here, and the idea behind this was the hammer was going to sort of fly past me and sort of head in this direction like so, but I didn't like it. I didn't quite think the angle was right. The shadow on the fence didn't look good. I thought, why not just send it through the fence? It wasn't something I planned for, but I knew it was something that I could definitely build with the footage that I already had. So let's go ahead and look at that. So we start with that hand slice footage that we've just created. And the first thing I did was put a hole in the fence. I sort of decided where I wanted it. And then with a mask, I just popped it in shot there. It just jumps in shot. And that was, you know, the hole. I sort of drew out this sort of shattered look. And then worked with that. So the first thing I did with this was splinter the edge a little bit. I thought this you know, is a good shape, but looks a bit cartoony, so let's add some splinters. And I did this by grabbing some wood textures on Google again, and going ahead and just sort of building a few layers. There's a few different shapes here, and I just sort of went around the shape and got these more splintered edges, which is a little bit more realistic looking than the hole. So they exist behind the footage, and obviously as soon as that mask comes in, you can sort of see everything happening. The next thing I did was add some chunks. This is just a shatter effect on the footage, and this was just to sort of add some particles and pieces, so when the hammer did go through, it looked like it was actually destroying it. So what we have is just that there. We did a few more things towards that. We added some wood debris from Action Essentials as well. They as well exist behind. You know, it sort of adds the sort of extra little bit. So we've got that shatter, which is these larger things, and those wood splinters are these sort of smaller pieces, and altogether they make this sort of collection of pieces that make it look like the fence has been shattered. Now, of course, there's nothing behind that fence. You can see a little bit of the background here. This is next door. You see a brick wall and a window. I needed something similar here, so this is actually just a alternate shot that I did from sort of front on, a little bit similar to where Thor had his hand chopped off, where the hand was in the camera. In fact, if we just go into that, you can sort of see this angle instead. And let's try and match it. I think, yeah, I just used over here there. So that was what I got away. It was just footage I had on the camera and had imported into After Effects already. And I thought it matched quite well. So all I've done to that is, you know, darkened it a little bit and added a camera blur as it's behind, and the focus is on those shatters. You can see some of those wood bits doing their magic a little bit better here. So that looks like that. Now, of course, we need to add the hammer. So for the hammer, we've created this hammer fling layer. This is, you know, Mjölnir coming on. A little bit slow here, coming on, and what it actually does is fly past that, and we'll get to that in a moment, but there's the moment of impact, and that's effectively where it goes through the fence. So if we just watch that again, quite quick. We've added some pixel motion blur here to add that motion blur to it, and originally there was a drop shadow, actually, yeah, I forgot about that. Originally there was a drop shadow on the fence, and if we just quickly go into there again, this is exactly the same as the other one. We created this within Element 3D and added some rotation there using some null objects. So of course, the next thing we need to do is make it look like it's actually going through the fence. And for this, if I just create another layer here, what we did was split the footage in two, and it was around here. I did this half, and again, this half with the footage, and what that gave me was this hand slice. So if I just solo that quickly, you can see I've got this thing to go on top, and obviously the other footage is below that. I did the same with the wood texture, those sort of splinters, and that made it look like it was actually going through this hole. I did actually get rid of the shadow in the end because it created this horrible line. I didn't want that on the hammer fling here. And then finally I added some dust onto the front, so it looks like that impact shook some dust, or when it did splinter, it did something more than just crack. And with that, I've just toned it to this grayer color, and obviously added a Gaussian blur just to make it a little bit more out of focus, a little bit more dusty. And what that gives us is our final shot. We've got my hand being chopped off, followed by that hammer going through the fence. As I said, this wasn't planned at the beginning, this hammer going through the fence, but I think I pulled that off okay. The hand, it was a bit annoying to track, but generally I think I got away with it. You see a few different wood bits coming through the footage here. That's because I moved the footage up, and I knew I would be adding letterboxes, so I could get away with that. I then went ahead and added a camera shake over in the fence when the impact happens here. And that was the final shot. That's everything together. And that was my attempt at the effect from Thor 2: The Dark World, where Thor gets his hand chopped off by Loki. As I said at the start of the video, these are being uploaded to Instagram before I do the project deconstructions here on YouTube. So make sure you're following me there. Make sure you subscribe here. And the next one's probably already out, so head over to Instagram and check it out. Until next time though, goodbye.